Restaurant Unstoppable. Inspire, empower, and transform the industry. With excitement, allow me to welcome back on the show for a second time. We're not sure if it's the third time. We can't find the second episode if this is the third time.
Can't find the first one.
The first one is 426. So if it's, and we don't even know who we're talking to yet. This is Mikey Sorboro from Late Night Slice. And man, if you guys did not catch episode 426, I'm telling you right now, hit pause, head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/426. That's our original conversation where we share Mikey's come up and how he got to where he was in 2018, January of 2018. Today, we're picking up where we left off, and maybe we're talking a little bit about the future, and I'm really excited for today's conversation. But before we get going, before we start, the conversation where we left off, what we got to do. This isn't your first rodeo. We got to get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling.
Yep.
With a success quote or mantra.
Well, first, Eric, I am feeling unstoppable. And my success quote or mantra is, this is something that we've pulled, and this is our rally cry during COVID, which is don't give up the ship. And we will dig into that, I'm sure, a little bit later. But that is, that was our mantra about being resilient, about being creative, about making it through, about not giving up. So, that's really stuck with us. We got a flag in the office. I got a flag hanging from my house that says "Don't give up the ship."
I love that.
And that was something that's really resonated with us over the last 16 or so months.
You know what I love about that? And thinking about my good friend Mario Del Perro from Mendocino Farm is talking about language and culture. And we need to create language and culture, things that identify us with the group. And like having little like slogans like that echo day in and day out, like mantras and chants are so powerful.
Absolutely.
We'll get into why they're so powerful.
What it does is it consolidates everybody's thinking to one channel, to everything we do, everything we did over the last almost 2 years was no matter what gets thrown at us, we don't give up.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were going to look like after COVID, but we knew we'd be here. Mm-hmm. All right. So when you have culture is language. It's the things you use. It's what you call people. We don't have employees. We have paisans.
Yep.
Paisans. It's our little pizza making thing. All your culture is about the things that you name, the specific, aspects of your company. So, don't give up the ship for us was, that was our big umbrella rally cry that, that said we were going to be resilient, that said we were going to be creative, that said no matter what gets thrown at us, we will make it to the end of this thing. No matter how long it takes, we will be here. We don't know what we're going to look like, but we're going to be here.
I love this, man. Great way to get it started. And I can't believe I didn't ask if you're feeling unstoppable, but you knew.
I got it, man.
You knew. And that's just how comfortable I am around you. I don't think I've ever forgotten to ask my guests if they're feeling unstoppable. I'm just so comfortable around you. So before we get started, we're already kind of into it, but I think it's important to point out to my listeners that when I first interviewed Mikey back in January of 2018, that was the first road trip, like the real deal road trip where I, no turning back. What's that? Like burn the ships, like no turning back. Exactly, like I'm in this, like I was 4 years into Restaurant Unstoppable. And at this point, like the majority of my interviews had been remotely, and I was kind of doing some local on-site interviews. But this was the point where I was like, I'm going all out. Like I'm going in my car, my Honda Fit. I'm just going to who will ever receive me. Yeah. And Mikey was on that first road trip. I stopped first in Pittsburgh, and I came to Columbus, Ohio. And you made that first trip possible, and you helped me realize that this vision that I had of just going and sitting down in restaurants and talking to restaurateurs was possible. And I kind of feel guilty because I recorded the interview before I got here because I was so desperate for interviews. And then you're like, I was hoping you would do it in person. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come back, because I wanted to give you that opportunity to do it in person. And here we are today. Yeah. But I just want to say thank you, man, because you made it possible. And I probably, if I didn't have that support from that first wave of people when I said, I want to do this, if I didn't have people come back and say, come visit me, come here, I probably wouldn't be here today. So thank you so much. Like I wouldn't be here without you.
Well, like I said, man, that is a very mutual sentiment because, I have personally gotten so much from listening to the interviews that you've done. So I've gained so much from your hard work too. So I throw that one right back.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When you first reached out to me, like I for some reason back then, and even to this day, like I don't believe my own success. and people like congratulate me often, and I'm just like, for what? I'm nowhere near where I want to be. I'm so far away. But like, I couldn't believe that people like yourself were even listening to the show. Like something like, at this point you were successful, you know, and you listened to the show, and it kind of just like surprised me. And it kind of took me off guard, frankly. And I was happy you reached out to me because we're friends today, and I know this is going to be a good one. So let's just kind of get into it, man. So in 2018, 3 food trucks, 2 brick and mortars, and a delivery commissary. And that's where we left off. Again, hit pause, go back to episode 426 if you want to get caught up. What has happened since? Kind of go to 30,000 feet and just cruise to like present day.
Well, COVID.
We can skip over that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. So, you know, we are a way different organization than we were 3, almost 4 years ago now. You know, we pared down to 1 food truck. I would say if there's a theme over the last couple of years, we are leaner, we are meaner, we are way more nimble than we used to be. You know, back in the day, when we I guess last recorded a talk, we were just big and bloated and kind of fat and happy, and we were just unfocused. You know, we were making money. We were arguably successful, but you know what we didn't have an idea of what, you know, the business was going to be when it grew up. And I think COVID really forced that hand. And so we're, you know, we can talk about that and how much better we are than we were 18 months ago. But I think the things that have changed since 2018 is that we've just realized that, you know, things can make money, but it doesn't mean we should be making money at them. So that doesn't mean we should be taking every opportunity, because to be frank, you know, less does equal more when it comes to, you know, your focus.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to grow a concept.
So I don't quite understand. You can make money, but we shouldn't be making money at them. What do you mean by that?
So, you know, every one of us, and I there's going to be a really awesome thing that's happening to all of us restaurateurs right now, where since COVID, there are those who didn't make it, unfortunately, too tired, not strong enough, too new, too weak, whatever. And
is it unfortunate?
I think it is. You know,
yeah,
you never want anybody to fail.
No,
of course.
but you know, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, so it is unfortunate, but what's happening is there's a ton of opportunities for those of us who have made it. All right, and there's people going to be, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is the beginning of all those opportunities for second generation spaces, for spaces with a hood, let's say, that are going to be, you know, not a $750,000 build or whatever your, you know, concept costs you to build. It's going to be, you know, a third of that, a quarter of that, a fraction of that, because there's going to be all these opportunities. So what we're seeing, I think, and what we're going to continue to see is all these opportunities getting thrown at those of us who have made it. Now, the hard part about that is going to be is, should you take on that opportunity, right? And so when I say that, yeah, we could make money there, but should we?
Okay,
right?
I get it now.
So is there, you know, another concept? Is there, you know, is there something? Is there a business that, you know, we could buy that takes us a little bit away from our focus? We're in pizza and booze, you know, there's a sandwich shop that, you know, is you know, wants to be partnered with us or something like that. Okay, should we go into sandwiches? Yeah, we could make money, but should we?
Yeah.
If we're trying to grow these, you know, the core concept.
So the saying that I like to echo that I think is really close paralleling what you say is everything you say yes to is something else you have to say no to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So be careful. And it's weird because there's a lot of contradicting advice out there. Like, say yes to everything.
Sure.
And then be careful what you say yes to, because you can't say yes to everything because,
right.
you know, I think kind of what we off air, we were saying, like, when you get started, say yes to everything.
Yeah.
But over time, as you evolve, as you grow up, you got to figure out what your niche is, where your area of focus is,
right.
and then start to shed some of that weight and do one thing really well.
Exactly.
So I think we're aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So what things did you start to shed? Get back to the idea of the things that you mentioned, a sandwich shop. Where were you going with that thought?
You know, back in 2018, we had bought a concept, and it was a restaurant that had gone through a couple of owners. I swear to God, to this day, the place is built on an Indian burial ground. Like, I swear to God, it is.
Like literally, or you
no?
think so?
I figure I wouldn't. Let's say I wouldn't be surprised.
There were a lot of Indians out here.
There was, and I'm convinced this place was built on an Indian burial ground. Anyway, it was cursed. Not that we did the best job at it, and I'll be the first one to admit that. But those things, there's been a few things like that. We had 3 food trucks. We didn't need 3. We needed 1. All right, so we just pared it down to 1. We got rid of that concept that was not part of our core concept. So today, we're looking at a concept, Late Night Slice and Oddfellows, that has 8 locations, 1 food truck. We have a couple of concert venues in Columbus and Cincinnati that we're going to be doing. And we've also, experienced growth during COVID when we didn't think growth was possible, nor did we really want to grow. But an opportunity to work with Hollywood Casino and Penn National Gaming kind of fell in our lap, and that kind of developed a little bit of a licensing deal for us where we put our concept in. We have it open in one casino here, and we're going to be open in another one here by the end of the year or so. So we are way more focused on the core that makes this thing go. Our executive team is a lot slimmer than it used to be because we were just kind of, like I said, fat and happy, and now it's just it's meant for growth at this point.
I think that was a 30,000 foot. Like, here's where we are. Mm-hmm. So you said you had 8 total brick and mortars today. So how many Late Night Slices are there now?
So there's 6.
There's 6. So since we last spoke, you opened 4.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think we had like 4 or 5 when we last talked.
Okay.
We had more than 2.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I don't know where I'm getting that number then.
Yeah.
Because maybe I misheard when I listened to the episode. And then you got you had the concert venues. Was that 2?
Yeah. So there's actually 3. So
3
we have
now?
an outdoor concert venue, 2 outdoor concert venues, and then an indoor concert venue on OSU campus.
Are you still doing the delivery commissary?
No, we actually got rid of that as well. So we
was that before or after COVID-19?
That was before COVID.
Do you wish you stuck with that?
That was man. I loved our commissary. That was just our big food production facility.
Let's pause that because I feel like that's later. I want to go a little more chronological because I think where we started talking was sandwich shop. So this is kind of like where we left off. That was probably the big project that you took on after I was here the last time that you decided didn't work out, right?
And that was Joe's Corner Tavern. That was the lesson I think that we learned off of that is don't buy somebody else's mistake. We learned a couple lessons off that, so I'll go into the first one here first, and that was don't buy somebody else's mistake. Like I said, I think that place was cursed from the get-go. Not that we did the best job, but it was just a really, really difficult community to prove something into, and sometimes communities just want a chain. Sometimes they just want an Applebee's or Roosters, if you're familiar with this area.
Did you say it was a difficult community or a different community to prove something in?
Well, it's different than what we're used to because we're used to very central business district. And then it was a very hard community to prove something. Everything that we tried was just destroyed on Yelp and the reviews and everything. So,
don't be afraid to push that mic up too if you don't want to crouch down yet.
Yeah, sure.
Move it to you. Yeah, there we go. That's why I lug these things all over the
country.
Is that better? Oh yeah.
There we go.
So you also said when you were kind of doing your cruise at 30,000 feet that we didn't do the best at it. Knowing what you know now. You said, don't take on someone else's mistake, but what didn't you do well?
We didn't give it some businesses that I think if you're going to go into a business that is failing or that has failed and you need to turn around that ship, it's a very, very slow process.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a very specific skill set or if you don't have anyone in your company with that very specific skill set that can fix a failing restaurant, then it's going to be a really hard journey for you. So
what lessons did you learn as far as what it takes to fix a failing restaurant? Like would you have done it differently if you could do it again, aside from not doing it?
Yeah. What it needs, what I think we needed to do if we could have done this differently, it needs 100% of our attention 100% of the time. And what we were doing, we were trying to run a business, and then we had this other thing.
You're like, we got this.
Yeah, and we tried to use the tools.
You start
that
to
worked.
believe your own success.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Everything we touch turns to gold, right?
Yeah.
And this is, what I call our PhD, because it cost us just about as much as a PhD. It only cost about a year and a half, but that was what we call our PhD. That was that big mistake, that big failure that we will always look at and be like, what, that was our bruise. That was the thing that didn't work for us. And what lessons did we learn? And of course, the one lesson is, don't buy somebody else's mistake. If you're good at creating concepts, create another concept. And what we did is we bought somebody else's concept, and then we tried to turn the ship around when the name was tainted. We didn't change the name fast enough. we didn't put the right management team in there. It was the crew. We didn't really, we started with the crew that had already been there, and they were used to a certain way of doing things that was just the way and the reason why this place had failed. So many lessons on there. And I think the other huge lesson, one, don't buy somebody else's mistake. And the reason we got this restaurant, and this is the second lesson, right? The second lesson is if it's not a fuck yeah, it's a no. And the way we turned around that and the way we came to that, because when we got this restaurant, it wasn't because we thought, this would be an amazing addition to our portfolio. We got it because we were tired of losing deals. And over the previous 2 years before we got that, we had gone into something and we'd get to the 11th hour. We were about ready to sign. We were all excited. And then bank financing didn't go through or something like that. They pulled the lease at the last minute. We had gone through like 3 or 4 projects. So by the time this specific one came around, we were like, can we get it done?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, let's do it. Fuck it. Right. And that was the mistake, because it wasn't like, we were excited about it. We're like, all right, finally, we just got a deal done. So we weren't even.
It was work.
Yeah, we were just tired of getting told no, and somebody said yes, and we're like, all right, cool. So, man, I tell you what, like the lessons that we will take away from that location are invaluable. Like I said, it was a PhD, and like figuratively, I guess I can't say literally because I don't have a piece of paper, but. That was a huge lesson, man.
So I ironically just finished interviewing Ellis Winstanley out of Austin, Texas, and I don't know if you're familiar. Actually, I'm wearing the hat right now. He gave me a little going away gift. This badass hot pink hat. Yeah, I love bright colors. Yeah. El Arroyo, and like what they do, what he specializes in is going into legacy brands that are just old and tired. Yeah. And saying this has great brand, this has great name recognition. It's just tired and it needs to be shooken and like revitalized.
Enthusiasm.
And the first thing that they do is they go in and they get rid of the cancer, which is the people who don't carry the same culture that they're trying to inject into it.
Great.
They say get the fuck off the bus because this is where we're going. Because if those people will fight you tooth and nail, they will. No matter what you're trying to do to get in there, you'll come in and say this is what we're doing, and they'll be like, we were here before you. Who the hell do you think we are? Like that's
not going to work.
Yeah, like that's not going to work here. Yeah. And they gotta go.
Yep.
But the other thing that I think is really kind of curious, and this is weird, like life is confusing, man. And I'm the first person that can say that like you hear a lot of mixed messages sometimes. And one of the mixed messages is one of the things I always say is be someone's exit strategy, because you can get sweet deals when you're someone's exit strategy. But at the same time, you hear things like don't buy someone else's mistake. So what's the difference between being someone's exit strategy and not being someone's mistake?
I guess it just depends on what kind of risk that you're looking at right now. What does your operation currently look like? So, I think both have, really valid, both are really valid strategies. It just depends on where you're at and what your, existing organization looks like. If you just sold your restaurant and you want to dive into something that has a lot of potential, it was just ran shitty in the past, then, perhaps buying someone else's mistake isn't bad if you know the exact mistakes they made, right?
Yep.
So, and then as far as being someone's exit strategy, then perhaps that's a good way depending on what you have going on.
Here's the thing I think that's different between where it is a good idea to be someone's exit strategy and where it's a bad idea to be someone's exit strategy. And you pointed it out. And I was wondering if you were going to, I kind of had an idea of the answer, but I wanted to see what you would say. And this is just my opinion. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but you have to be there 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And if you're getting into this industry and this is the first job you're doing, and you want to if you want to be someone's exit strategy and they just want to wipe their hands of their mistake, and you can get in there and be there 100% of the time, and this is your one thing, then I think there's an opportunity there, because of that key element. You got to be there 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Do you think that might be the difference?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why advice doesn't work for everybody, and there's a little variables that are different. Yeah. Like certain advice is good for certain people. So sorry, I think I cut you short.
Not at all. And I think that's really valid. It just depends on how many calories you want to put into something. What is your capacity to take on something that could arguably be a giant project, no matter if it's, a traditional project where you're building a kitchen and building a restaurant and building something from the ground up, or if you're just taking over something that is damaged goods, right? So there's valid. It's just how much capacity do you have? How busy are you? Yeah.
And I think on that note of like, if you can't be there 100% of the time, just to add some context, I don't think it has to be you, but if you're like an Ellis Winstanley, whose job is to go in and turn around failing brands, he has teams that their job is to be there 100% of the time. And
Sure.
they're the culture carriers.
Yep.
Right. So, but that's not what you guys did. That wasn't your, so this goes back to the original point where you were just saying yes to stuff. And then I think you're evolving and growing as a company, and you're realizing your strength.
And that's wisdom, right? And that's knowing the difference between a good opportunity and a bad opportunity. Right?
Yeah.
That's the difference between knowing. And when you're young and excitable and wide-eyed, it's just like, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that. Hey, they just offered this to us. They just offered this. Look at this thing. It's beautiful and brand new, and they just walked away. We could just get in there for nothing.
But you don't know what you don't know until you know.
Exactly. And that comes with wisdom, right? Yes. That comes with doing this for years and realizing like, okay, just because we can make money doesn't mean we should make money from this. Right? So
reflecting back at some of, we talked about like the cultural stuff, a little bit of like, I feel like that's mainly what we've been talking about right now, or like this cultural fit. But as far as like nitty gritty technical things, permitting, anything along those lines that you think you could have done better or that you didn't do, that you can help prevent somebody else from making that same mistake, does anything come to mind?
I as far as the technical stuff, permitting and that stuff, that was done perfectly well.
Okay.
I don't think that was, but what I do remember from that experience was how unfair it was to everyone involved. And what I mean by that is, we as the leaders of this organization decided that we were going to take something on that was outside of the normal wheelhouse of people, right? So we took, a manager that didn't want to be, he was used to a downtown business district cocktail bar. And we said, you're going to go help us turn this thing around in a suburb, a sports bar in the suburbs. He was miserable, right? And the entire crew, our entire executive team, they got dragged down by this decision that we made.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't just affect you. It's not just a bottom line decision. It's not just a top line revenue decision. It's not just a decision, like you got to look when your ecosystem as a whole, every decision you make it affects the entire ecosystem, right? So it wasn't, I kept thinking to this. I mean, we lost a lot of good people. We burned out good people because they were helping as much as they could. They didn't have the skill set to fix this, failing thing. And how unfair was that of us to put them through that? And we didn't realize it at the time. We had to lose a lot of really good people to realize that lesson, So, that was one thing that that really came to mind as we were talking is how unfair it was to the ecosystem of what we did, because they were really good at doing what we did, and we took them out of their comfort zone in a bad way. And, like I said, we lost a lot of really good people, and, they're hopefully and luckily still friends to this day, but, they don't work for us.
Well, I think what you're just doing right now is enforcing, if it's not fuck yeah, it's no.
Yeah. You know what, man? And I tell you what, like that has been a motto for life lately. I just got done buying a house, and that was me and my wife. We were like, well, is it
same house where I came to visit?
We're still living there, but we sold it. It is technically not ours.
Okay.
So after this, we can go wreck the place.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter. It's not ours. But yeah, and that mantra, applies there too. Like if you can't look at, the person, your partner, your wife, whatever, and think, is this decision, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like no questions, is this a slam dunk? Then you should probably, then there's probably issues that you need to inspect about it, or you should walk away.
Yeah. And while you're saying these words, I can't help but think of a past episode, Johnny Carrabba, from Carrabba's Italian Grill, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. Yeah. Iconic brand out of Houston, Texas. He talked about the importance of enthusiasm.
Yep.
And when you walk into the room, you have to be the highest energy, the highest enthusiastic person.
Yep.
And when you're not enthusiastic about the project, it's hard for you to be that person.
Totally.
And which is why it has to be a fuck yeah. Because if you're gonna, because we radiate energy, we vibrate, and that vibration gets passed on to others. Yep. If we're showing up and that's a negative vibration, it's still a vibration, and it's going to get passed on to others. Absolutely. And you won't be able to turn things around.
It's contagious.
Yep.
It absolutely is.
Yep.
In both directions.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you got to, whatever energy you come into a room, it has to be the highest, because people will meet you in the middle. Yeah. They'll probably bring you down a little bit, and that's natural, but you're going to bring them up, right? So you have to be a fuck yeah.
Yeah, you know what you reminded me of too, when you talked about enthusiasm. I have a little saying too that goes, there's no enthusiasm like new enthusiasm. And man, if you think about that, you bring on that like new manager who's just like, woo, let's do this, and they're like a cheerleader, and you're like, fuck yeah, man, like look at that dude go. like that's new enthusiasm, you know? So, you know, sometimes you need that new enthusiasm, you know, whether it's a new location that's, you know, it's total slam dunk, or, you know, you're at your opening, or you're just hiring somebody new.
I think that's what happens when you create growth and opportunity for others, right? You create that opportunity for new enthusiasm.
Totally.
But it has to be the right growth.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
Okay, so I think we unpackaged that really well. Then the other thing we talked about is you got rid of the 2 food trucks. What was the thought process behind that?
So, you know, food trucks I look at food trucks in 2 different directions. You know, one in the aspect of like you own your food truck, or your company owns your food truck, and it's a profit center, right? And on the other side, you have a food truck and it's a marketing vehicle, literally a marketing vehicle, right? So, and there's 2 whole different ways to look at a food truck, and I'll kind of dig into both here. First, you know, you have, you know, a food truck that's part of your restaurant, and to have a functioning food truck, you have to have, and this is somebody who's had food trucks for 12 years now, you have to have somebody running that food truck. You almost have to have a food truck manager if you want this thing to be a profit center, if you want it to be just like a location, right? That thing has to prove its worth. It has to be out on the road 5 to 7 days a week. It has to be staffed just like a regular restaurant. It has to be managed just like a regular restaurant. And not to mention, your staff has to have a different skill set, because not only does it have to know everything that they have to know to run a restaurant, they have to know all the things to manage a 20-year-old step van. So
a mechanic.
They have to be a kind of a mechanic, right? And they have to be an incredible troubleshooter, because these things have so many moving.
At least some type of engineer.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, if you have a food truck and you're just going to say, all right, I'm going to get this food truck and we're going to blend it into the restaurant. And then, you know, the manager at this restaurant is also going to manage the food truck, and that staff is going to manage that. All right. And you expect that thing to be a profit center and not just a marketing vehicle. All right. You're setting yourself up for failure there, because this thing, to be its own standalone, you know, revenue producing thing that's going to bring you in a few $100,000 a year, that thing has to be manned specifically for a food truck. Right. On the other side, and you'll see bigger brands that have food trucks treat it like this, and that's the marketing vehicle, right? Where that thing could be parked 3 months out of the year, but during big events, you know, I mean, they could be parked behind their location. It's not necessary to be out every day, right? Got it. So, you know, when your food truck is a marketing vehicle, so like I said, big brands, like we have White Castle, that is Columbus based as well. They have a food truck, and you never really see the White Castle food truck out because it doesn't need it.
Did they start in Columbus?
They didn't start in Columbus, but they've been headquartered here for pretty much their entire existence.
Because I just noticed that like the White Castles in Columbus are much nicer than anywhere else.
Well, they should be. They should be. Their corporate headquarters is about three blocks
that's the one I saw. I was like, wow, that's a really nice White Castle.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, keep going.
So anyway, you have like your food truck is a marketing vehicle, and that's just, they go out for big events. They go out for, like special, events and parties and whatever. But it doesn't need to produce revenue because it's just a marketing vehicle. And then at that point, then you can borrow a manager from, a restaurant that, is a little bit savvy with, driving a big vehicle or, whatever. So, I think there's 2 real big ways to look at a food truck. It either has to be, and it's kind of binary. I really think it is like, it's either a marketing vehicle and you don't expect that to be a profit center, or it's a profit center and it needs its own team to be successful as a normal restaurant.
So on the marketing side, it's more of like an experience creator. You're there to generate an experience and kind of a wow factor. And that's what it's there for, to kind of bust in like the Kool-Aid man and like make a big scene, right?
Exactly. If it makes, $1,200 at an event, cool. If not, if you're just giving away things, that's cool too. It's served that purpose, is to get people excited that haven't or that have yet to reach your brand.
So based off
you're bringing your brand to the people.
So based off the decisions you made, I'm going to go ahead and make the assumption that you're looking at these food trucks now less as a money generator, operational element of your brand, and you're more of a marketing tool now.
Correct. Now exactly. So our food truck, the one we have, is still out 7 days a week. Like, we still have a manager of it. We still have a team that, is basically the food truck team. It's like our motorcycle gang. Yeah. Like, it really is. Like, the guys that run our food truck are badass. They are like a leather-clad motorcycle gang.
Is it out there right now today by any chance? Do you know where
it's somewhere.
I
don't know.
I want to hunt it down and maybe grab some photos before I get out of here.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'll find it for you, but it's out today for sure. But yeah, they're a badass crew, man.
So when it comes to using a food truck like a marketing vehicle, what are the best practices?
As far as just like here's the thing. I don't know if you need to have that many best practices because, the thing is just, kind of an ancillary part of your brand, right? It's on the periphery. It's just an extension of the brand that happens to be on wheels that you can take, to places that you want to expand your brand experience with, right? So, as far as best practices go, I don't know if there are any, I like to take it out to everywhere. That was part of our brand building in the very beginning, was making sure that, we didn't try to get in the food truck revolution. We just wanted something on wheels. This is 12 years ago when we decided to get a food truck. So, this was way before like the food truck craze. I mean, I think they were just on the edges of the country at that time, or the taco trucks that, kind of, still hung out there, but there wasn't a food truck craze. We got in just because we wanted to take our brand to festivals. Yeah. And we ended up being one of the first ones, at least in our area, to have like a boutique food truck.
Got it.
So it's been a really fun evolution to go from a team of food trucks down to just one now, and it's still out.
So it's kind of like a hybrid of what you talked about. It's a money making machine, and it's also a marketing machine. But when you don't have any events, or when you're not trying to make a scene, when you're not trying to use it as a marketing tool, it's out there generating revenue.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a revenue generator for us right now. I would say it's like 70-30. So 70% is a revenue generating thing. We just don't expect a lot out of it at this point. And 30% is just,
if there's an event today, it's at that event.
Totally.
Got it.
Yep.
I don't like to get too caught up. Dude, have you been going to the gym? You look like a little more like ripped since the last time.
The last time we talked.
I'm not checking you out or anything.
No. Thank you. The last time we talked, my buddy, I was sitting at the bar drinking, and I was just like literally like sick, and my partner, he's like, hey, do you want to? I was making fun of him for like doing CrossFit or something like that, and he's like, you should come to the gym with me. And I was having one of those like especially like I'm feeling fat and sick, and I was like, all right. Yeah,
dude,
I'll do it.
This wasn't meant to be in the recording, but I think that this is how we're going to start off. So we're just going to keep on going with this because I'm resonating with that right now. Yeah. Like, and I've actually lost like 10 pounds.
I can tell, dude. Yeah, you look way slimmer.
But like in the past like month, I've like lost 10 pounds.
Yeah.
It's because of Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It's because of that book, and I wasn't going to get into this yet, but like. I feel like it's funny because the thing that we're not going to have in the recording is I said, well, what do you want to talk about? And you said work-life balance. And I think this is probably a perfect segue.
Yeah.
So get into that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Are we?
We're recording right now. This is it. Yeah. Why not?
I mean, if we talk work-life balance, I mean, that's, yeah, I guess.
Is that part of it?
Yeah. For who?
For you, like the wellness, like working out, exercise, is that part of the work-life balance?
Yeah. I mean, work-life balance, I think is kind of a myth. When you're starting out, it's bullshit. There is no work-life balance when you're grinding in the beginning.
I call it your work's life, or your life's work.
Your life's work.
Your life's work. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, unless you've gotten to the point where you have a team of people that are doing all the things that you used to do, and you're only doing the things that you're good at and love, then you've maybe achieved work-life balance, But work-life balance for people that are just starting out is kind of bullshit, and they should treat it as such.
Yeah.
Because there shouldn't be a balance.
It's the goal.
It's a goal, exactly.
Yeah.
Work-life balance is a goal. It is certainly not the thing that you start off with by any means. Unless that's what you want. Unless you just want to.
Well, I think it kind of relates to what we started earlier saying, like, you got to say yes to a bunch of stuff early on and hustle. Yeah. Plus, when you're 22 years old, like 19 to 25, 26 years old, even like into your early 30s, like you have the endurance to do that. Your body can handle it. But and I'm just starting to experience this even now. Like once you get to your mid 30s, things start to change.
Totally. Yeah. I'm 40 right now, and things are harder than they used to be.
Yeah, for sure. And I know it's only going to get harder for me, but I definitely know it used to be easier.
Yeah, exactly. It's things are sorer than they used to be.
But it's just that idea that like you while you have that energy, while you have that endurance, while you have your youth, get out there, get the experience, get the wisdom, and then become the specialist, and then you get good at one thing because you've gotten, the universe has told you, hey, this is what you're good at, because people will point it out or like whatever, or you just can tell that you found your thing, and then that's when you can lean into it. I think become a specialist. I think that's when the shift starts to happen. Yeah. Where you can start to achieve work life. Then you lean into that.
Exactly.
I don't want to be the one talking. I'm here to interview you. So what's going through your mind?
I think you're onto something. Let's lean into this, Eric. No, you're exactly right, man. And what you have in your youth is you don't have a lot of responsibility. You don't have the weight of the world on your shoulders. You might not have a family. You might not have a wife. You might not have kids, right? So you can and should really lean into that while you don't have that, that commitment of, a family when you're young. So like, yeah, in your early 20s or mid 20s, early 30s, whenever, you're grinding, like take advantage of that, like you should be traveling. You should be seeing as much as there is to see in this world. Like you should be working as hard as you can, because once you start splitting your responsibilities and the calories that you have in a day and the hours that you have in a day, like it gets exceptionally harder. Like it just does, because, you have kids and a wife and a responsibility and a mortgage, you don't have the low risk tolerance that you used to in your youth, so youth, I'm saying that like,
why do you think there's a
hello youths?
What do you think there's a higher or lower risk tolerance later in life when you have more and you can take a bigger hit?
Energy.
I think, yeah. Anything else?
Responsibility.
Why energy?
Because you have less of it as you get older.
Yeah.
I mean, you just do. I mean, there are certain of those among us who just have,
pretty obvious.
That vibrate high, and that are just those dudes who can just do it no matter what. They're always grinding no matter what, and that's fine. But that's not the majority of people, I mean, that's not the majority of us. Right.
I was literally having this conversation with the VIA 313 brothers down in Austin yesterday, and Andrew Smith, and we were talking, and I said, when I was piss ass broke, I would buy around. I might have had $100 in my checking account, and I would spend 50 of it to buy around for everybody.
Sure.
I'm less likely to do that today.
Yeah,
and
right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's weird how, like, as you gain, like, I don't know, like wealth. I don't think I'm wealthy, but as you gain security, I'll say,
sure.
You tend to be less generous with it. Why do you think that is?
Age and stage.
Yeah.
Age and stage, man, because depending on what age you are and what stage you're at in life, you have different priorities, right? So, priorities may be family, priorities might be kids, priorities might be your wife or your significant other. It might be other projects, right? So, there's absolutely something to be said for age and stage, in almost all aspects of it.
I think, that saying, you have nothing to lose? Mm-hmm. I think that has a lot to do with it too. When you're young and
YOLO, bro,
you have nothing to lose. Like, what's $100? I'll go work tomorrow night and make that back.
Exactly.
When you've built something, you spent like 8 years, 20 years of your life building something. You have a lot to lose.
Yeah, totally.
And also, you're responsible for a lot of other people, and they have a lot to lose. Sure. And that pressure's on you.
Yeah,
I think that has a lot to do with it too.
It's like skydiving, man.
Yeah.
When I first skydived, I've only been skydiving like one time, but when I did it, I didn't. I had me and my wife did it, but now it's like that was years ago. Now it's like, all right, we got a kid. I got another one on the way, in December here. The business is bigger and thriving now. It's like, the idea of skydiving now scares the shit out of me, not because of the physical act of skydiving, because I have a lot more to lose now, and I have insurance to to help with that. But still that, back then it was just like, I rent an apartment and don't have a lot going on. Let's go skydiving. Now it's like, ugh.
Mikey, you had to call the landscaper today.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they don't stop. We live literally on High Street, so I call it living on the bus line. It is the loudest place on earth. It is New York City during like a.
I'm just teasing, man.
No.
People know I travel on site. We're at the mercy of our location.
I know.
I think it's just kind of funny. So back to this idea of work-life balance. I think when we first, and I go back to episode 426 again, because we covered a lot of what you got to do to achieve work-life balance, i.e. vision, systems, culture, core values, getting all that stuff. You need all that stuff.
Yeah.
But once you have that stuff, how do you make that pivot, or how do you start moving away from the business to achieve work-life balance?
The old saying, you got to let go to grow.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you let go?
You teach somebody competently, and you document, and you create a system and a process that can be handed off to someone. So you take those things that you've done, you've mastered, and you create the system. And this is a lot of hard work, right? You have to create, you have to document, you literally have to make an entire process to then be able to hand off, to somebody, and then you can step away.
So the process of creating process continues. There's the process to do the thing.
Yeah.
Then there's the process to make sure somebody else is doing the thing.
Yeah. It's like figuring out the process. Step one is like figuring out the process.
Yep.
And then documenting the process and the system. Step two.
What's step three?
Teaching.
Okay.
So as you go up the ladder, you start, at one spot where you're learning, and then you can teach.
What's step four?
Maintenance.
What's step five?
Shit.
So
talking to
maintaining,
you about
is that
it.
where you are? Yeah. So is that where we are now? Is you're at this point where you've created all the process for the thing to run without you there? And I guess the question is, what does the process of maintaining look like?
It's holding people to the standards you've created.
Like literally paint out your process. How do you make sure that the job is being done every day? What things are you doing where you don't have to be there every day, but you know that you're tracking, you have the systems. What are those systems?
Sure. Layers. You have layers as the business grows. You add layers between you and the things that you need done. Right. So
identify those layers.
I mean, when you're starting out and you add, I'll give you a good example. Like we had, we just got to the point in our 12-year organization where right before COVID happened, January of 2020, we hired our first like 6-figure position, and it was our first VP of operations. His name's Ted. Awesome dude. We interviewed for 6 months to get this position, and by Ted was on the job 2.5 months before COVID hit. So
Jesus.
he got a crash course.
Poor guy.
Yeah, exactly. He was actually the one that brought in "Don't give up the ship."
Nice.
So that was his contribution. He came in the office one day and tacked this flag to the wall, and it was like, "This is gonna be our mantra," and we were all like, "Fuck it." 'Cause it was the middle of COVID, or it was the beginning, so nobody knew what was going on. So that was a good example of like at some point we were able to afford a large price tagged person that creates more space, more what's the word I'm looking for? Responsibility, more between you and the layers of the managers, right? So when you're doing it all yourself, you are doing every part of it. You are the manager, you're the order person, you're making the product that you're making, and then you step back and you hire somebody, and then eventually you hire a manager, and then you have a manager and a GM and whatever, and you get to that point where you just keep adding these layers that take you a little bit farther away.
So when you say layers, you're talking about physical people that you're putting in between you. You're recreating yourself with people every day. Like so first, and that's what it is. Like when you started Late Night Slice, you were the guy making the pizzas.
Sure, right.
And then you replaced yourself. You got yourself a layer, or like you start replacing yourself in all the elements of the business. Then you have your general manager, you replace yourself. Then you have the
middle managers,
and you just keep on replacing yourself until the point where now you replace yourself as there's somebody who's overseeing the businesses that is between you and the business.
Right.
What are you doing to track that?
Well, for one, it's not always about headcount too. So, growth and separation doesn't just mean putting a person in between, right? So that's when system and processes come in as well. So the more you systematize something, the more you get familiar with it, that is a layer as well where you can then teach. So, it isn't just about adding headcount. And we made that mistake, a number of times where we were just like, we're just going to throw money at something and hope that fixes it. And by money, we just we'll get we'll bring in a person that will, make sure the restaurants are clean, like our own in-house health department person. That wasn't necessary for a company of our size at that time, right?
Yeah.
So, that was that was an example of, that was us throwing money. That was us throwing headcount when headcount wasn't necessary. It was just an easy solution at the time, right? So I don't think that was a very good, way that we separated ourselves, but it was the best idea that we had at the time.
So what was the reason for you creating that headcount, that separation? Were you trying to free yourself up to work on new projects like a sandwich shop?
Yeah. We had never come from, restaurants before. We had never built a chain, of course. We had never come from big business or anything. So, that was our best idea. We're like, we need somebody to make sure the restaurants are, clean, and, that we didn't realize that could have been really, looped in with the managers.
So you made it more efficient. You cut the fat and you got lean and you were more efficient. So what did that process of efficiency look like? How did you know where to cut it, and what things did you change to it sounds like you replace people with systems. And that sounds kind of cold at first, but it's also necessary. But take us through that.
I think there's two ways to look at it.
Yeah.
Right? So you can add you can stumble and trip and fall and pull your way through it yourself. And that'll take you time. And you might save money, but it's going to cost you time, right? Because if you have to figure out, what growth looks like for your organization without bringing in, a high-priced person, or if you don't have mentors or whatever, right? So we did it the hard way. We did it the long and hard way, where we didn't, and probably the stupid way, to be honest. We didn't have, we didn't have mentors, or like a lot of people that were advising us of the way to do stuff. Nor were we comfortable with spending a shitload of money on, a high-priced, person. We just weren't at that stage yet. So it took us a while to figure this out, and there was a lot of tripping and stumbling, and it cost us a ton of money, just in time, right? So the other way to look at it is, if you're going to need somebody, spending that money before and hiring somebody that has done that job before is invaluable. And whatever price tag that you're shy, that you're timid of, say it's a $100,000 a year position, right? That person, if you hire the right person, will pay for their job 3 times over. In efficiency, in time saved, in so many aspects of the business. And that's a lesson that we learned, quite frankly, the hard way, is that we didn't, we were timid of that, like, we can't afford that person. Like, it's not like we couldn't afford it. In retrospect, how could we have not afforded that person? You know? And that's one of those lessons, like I said, you look back on, it's like, how could we have not afforded that person?
Yeah, the way I like to look at it is it's not what you're losing, the $100,000 a year. It's what you're gaining with $100,000 a year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the goal is to make sure that is an offset, like that they're worth their paycheck,
sure.
Right?
Exactly.
I love that. So, there's so many things we could talk about right now. I'm really, actually, I think now's a good time to bring up, because last time we were talking, you mentioned QSR, and the big thing that got you excited about QSR was all the data it gave you, all the numbers, which I think it's important to mention that what we're talking about right now, if you're trying to remove yourself from the business, you need trust,
sure.
But you also need to be able to track it.
Verify.
So is that the tool you're using to track?
No. So what we did, this was probably 4 years ago or so, QSR was an integral part of what we did. You know,
How many leaves are out there?
I know. It's not even fall, and
it's called a friggin' broom, man.
Yeah.
Like, geez, sorry, keep going.
It's a big patio. Really big patio. I got a lot of cigarette butts.
Well, he's doing a good job.
He's doing an admirable job. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Bravo, buddy. What were we talking about? QSR. So QSR, like I said, at that time, that was an invaluable resource for us, right? So we were just bringing on a lot of technology platforms. Since then, we've really pared these things down to, like, I think Microsoft Teams. I think we're as a company, like, on Teams right now, and we've taken a lot of that stuff that QSR taught us. And we still have those lessons. We still have that stuff. We're just not using that platform anymore.
Okay.
Because we got to a point where we learned a lot from that, but it was no longer all that necessary.
Yeah.
For us.
So what are you? So you said you're using Microsoft Teams right now. What else are you using? What are you using Microsoft Teams for? Like communication? Like what's the tool?
Yeah. So that's communication. That is shop audits. That is chats. That is. For the most part, that, and we're still on Facebook, which is a little bit antiquated, but the majority of our teams still have Facebook. So, I would say a lot of our restaurants are still on, Facebook groups, and that's how, they communicate inter-location.
I think that the tool you were looking at in 2018 that you mentioned was PlayerLink. Is PlayerLink, what was that doing?
We used PlayerLink briefly.
That was for training you wanted it for?
Yeah, I believe that was for training.
So is Microsoft's Team, is that the also solution for PlayerLink?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it encapsulated a ton of stuff.
Okay.
And over the years we were like, all right, let's add this. And then when you look at stuff, we're like, all right, we're paying $150 a month for this times 8, for the locations, we're paying this, and this. And at some point we just had to be like, we're spending a ton of money to save ourselves from just doing a little bit of hard work.
Yeah.
And these systems, like if you need help creating systems and processes, these platforms are invaluable. So, those, I don't even know if PlayerLink's still around anymore. But QSR, PlayerLink, I think I have one other on there that we used to use. They're incredibly invaluable to help you create systems.
Yeah.
And if you stick with them and they're worthwhile for you, then hell yeah, that's great. Yeah. We just got to a point where we're like, all right, we've learned enough off of these. It's time for us to move on.
So what's your major suite of tools look like today after shedding a bunch of stuff?
It's way more like nimble and small than it used to be.
What is it?
It's pretty much Microsoft Teams. I mean, we operate almost wholly off of Teams, Facebook, and then stuff that we've created in-house. So like we have Google lists, or what are they called? Like Google questionnaires or lists or something like that. That we have. We've traded all this, per month technology for free technology.
Yeah.
Teams took over like video chat for us, so that was like Zoom. It absorbed Zoom, and then the chats are, like really powerful just to keep everybody on the same page. We have our meetings. Our during COVID, that was we didn't have in-person meetings, so we did team meetings that were on that platform, and we have files that are traded on that. We have approvals that are needed. We have our entire creative team. Their planner is in that whole thing. So I mean, it's a bit at the executive level, like at the shop level. They do all their closing and opening lists on that,
and I think now is a really good time, as I was saying before, to pick up the conversation. I was interested to talk about Atomic Habits, and I think that all of what you're talking about, and the reason why we're doing Atomic Habits in the book club right now, I think we'll be in our second month of the book club when this goes live. And this is their quarter-long book club. So we're doing one book per quarter.
Yeah.
And the idea is to like really dissect and to like implement the lessons from the book instead of just reading a book and being like, oh, I'm better now.
Sure.
No, you're not. You're not better until you do the thing that's in the book, right? It's one thing to have knowledge. It's another thing to execute it.
It's hard to measure self-help, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I've been guilty of that, I'll admit. Because for me, it's just been about learning. Just like drinking from a fucking water hose or fire hose, just like, whoa, like what's... Now it's like, I need to go back and start like really
implementing
doing this
some of this
stuff.
stuff.
So I'm not a giant hypocrite,
Exactly.
And the first book we're covering is Atomic Habits by James Clear, which you just informed me is a Columbus, Ohio native, or he lives here.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Jared's probably kicking me in the ass right now for not doing my research.
I said off, when we were just chatting, I'm like, oh yeah, James is a buddy of mine. Like he's not, I wouldn't say a buddy of mine. I think he'd probably know who I am. We had he's like drinks or something like that. Like a couple of years back, right when Atomic Habits first came out. But super, super good dude, man.
So the reason why I want to bring that up is because I think that what we're discussing right now as far as creating layers and creating systems and doing all this starts with yourself. It starts with creating routine and habit in your life.
Yep. And
if you look at what systems and processes are, they're just routine and habit.
Right.
It's time blocking. This gets done now.
Yeah.
And there's triggers, but that's the idea of like habit stacking. So when you think about it, when you come into a restaurant, you're like, what are the things that need to happen right now to open?
Yeah.
There's a checklist. That checklist creates habit and routine.
Exactly.
And then what's the next checklist?
Right.
What's the next? And then the end of each checklist is the trigger to start the next checklist.
Sure, exactly.
And that's essentially what the book is teaching you.
Yeah.
Is that what are the things that if you start doing every day, you will make huge, massive impacts in your life. Like it will be like you need to automate those things, and you start stacking the next important thing, the next important thing, the next layer.
Yeah.
It's the foundation. And if you can start that in your life and get discipline and routine and habit in your life, it spills into your business.
Yeah.
And that's why we're starting that book right now. And it clicked. I was kind of stoned when it happened. Whenever, like I'm not gonna lie, like it
Full disclosure.
all made sense. It all made sense. I was like, holy shit. And I'm really excited about this. But if you want to be a part of this book club, I think we still have 1 month left if you want to be a part of the conversation.
Cool.
And I'm talking to everybody else out there too.
Sure.
Come join the network because we're having a blast. So what are your thoughts on what I just shared?
I mean, I think habits are the best and hardest thing that you can develop, for someone like me. And I think most, like restaurateurs or entrepreneurs, like habits are the hardest thing because it creates just being focused enough to create a habit and not getting off track is, for me personally, like the most thing I struggle with. Like I struggle with it the most.
In the book, the keeping tracking is the key. Tracking is the key, and the habit tracker is essentially a calendar. Every day that you complete your habit, you X your calendar, and the goal is to have a bunch of X's on your calendar.
Right.
And you got to out of sight, out of mind, right? So this thing has to live where you see it every day.
Exactly.
And then every day you X that calendar, you get that little
dose dopamine hit.
Like I did it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. The first 2 weeks that I started tracking, I did great. Then I went on this current road trip that I'm on right now, and it was a zoo at the Texas Restaurant Association. Now I'm here. My X's aren't going to look good this week, but the idea is you're not going to be a master out of the gate. But if you start tracking it, like you see those gaps on the calendar and you start kicking yourself in the ass and you want to do better. I think that's the trick, is tracking.
It's I think that's the hardest part for me personally, is getting off track.
Yeah.
Because I'll do great for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden people come into town, and then you're off track, because you have friends in town, or you're on vacation and you're just, eating and drinking like an asshole, and then you're off track, right? Yeah. And so there's so many things that can derail you. So I mean, I'm this is what I struggle with absolutely the most is that.
Yeah, one of the biggest lessons in the book is that it's not about how well you execute the habits. It's about consistency in attempting to execute and getting 1% better every day. So you're not going to be great out of the gate, and don't get discouraged if you're not, because as long as you're moving in the right direction, that's all that matters.
And it's not about perfection.
Yeah.
It's about progress.
Yes, exactly. So anything we haven't discussed up to this point about your, like, relative to your business before COVID?
No, I think we're solid.
So I guess what I want to talk about now, I think, we kind of already talked about your suite of tools, but did your business, I don't want to talk about COVID. I don't want to get into how you guys reacted. I just want to say what exists in your business today as a result of COVID?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be here. Like, are you better in any way because of it? Did you evolve in any way because of it? And what does that look like?
Yep. So, I mean, really, really good segue, I think, here, because, we are, we're not even done with COVID. We still have these lingering hangover effects, that we're all dealing with, right? But the company that we are today is so much more prepared and in such a better position for the future than we were pre-COVID, 100%.
Why?
Pre-COVID, we were fat. We were comfortable. We weren't forced to make hard decisions. So
Fat, dumb, and happy.
Fat, dumb, and happy. Yeah. Our executive team was bloated. We were spending too much money. We weren't focused on the things that were really critical to the business. We were just, something. It's a weird thing when you're forced to make hard decisions. And those of us who have been in this industry for a while, every one of us has that story that when you got into a room and you slammed the door and you said to everybody at the table, we got to figure this shit out, right? Like, everyone has had that one story where we're like, that oh shit moment where you didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow because of whatever. Right? Yeah. The decisions that come because of necessity, when you don't have options, are the ones that define the business, I think, way more than the decisions made when you're fat, comfortable, and happy, right? So what COVID forced not only our company to do, but I think a lot of companies, was a giant force to make hard decisions. So, we had to look at our entire business with a microscope, and we had to decide what was necessary, what was not necessary. And these, I might sound, flippant about these decisions now, but these were the hardest decisions we've ever made, right? Like, we had to let go some incredibly important people that helped us get to where we are today. And those decisions were not easy. And there's no but to that. There's only and the company that we are after that is just so much better. Our executive team is half of what it used to be. And not one of the persons that are still on the team are working 90 hours a week, right? So our systems and processes got defined more.
Tighter.
Because they had to, right? Because we didn't have the head count that was, keeping those plates spinning. Yeah. So we had to create better systems and processes. Money was way more critical, at least in the beginning, because we had no idea what that next day was going to be like, right? So we started looking at every possible aspect of the business on, top line revenue side and saying, like, all right, can we expand this? On the bottom side, like, all right, is this necessary? So we went with a line and just like, is this necessary? And we just went through the business and blacklined and redlined as much stuff as we could, took it down to its core, and then built back up, right? We had to get creative. We had to look for money in places that we would have never really looked for money unless we were forced to.
When you say look for money, are you talking about revenue generators?
Sure.
Like
Absolutely.
creating new channels of revenue?
Exactly.
So what were those channels?
I mean, we created a couple of ghost brands.
Okay.
That are still with us today. A vegan pizza concept.
Okay.
And we're just getting ready to pivot one. We just took one outside and shot it, and then we're pivoting that to something else. So we had to get way more creative. We had to get way more nimble. We had to get. I mean, we way more resilient.
Yeah, I think this is a great transition to one of the questions I had for you, because I follow Bruce Irving. I saw he posted. I saw that you did an interview with him recently.
Yep.
And he said, if we're starting a restaurant again today, this is how we're doing it. Or like if Mikey Sorboro is starting a restaurant, this is how he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Is this kind of tied into like what was discussed in that episode? Like, because you had to break everything down and you had to build back up.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
is this kind of, is there an overlap here?
No, absolutely. I
Okay,
mean, that's what comes with that wisdom and that hindsight. That once you've done something, once you've gone down these paths, you know then the right way to do it. If you'd have to do it again,
Yeah.
It wouldn't take us so long to do it. We wouldn't trip and stumble and fall, and it wouldn't take us years to do. You just know the right way to do it because you had to do it the right way at least one time.
Yeah. So I don't know. Is the question, what is it? What did you learn about developing ghost kitchen brands? Because I think that's something I want to learn about. Or what would you do today if you were starting a business? Because I have ideas of what I would do, but I'm just kind of curious of what you would do.
A couple things. One, I would be way more focused than I was in the beginning.
Is that the same answer though, or is that two different answers? Ghost kitchen or starting a restaurant today?
Well,
I was just curious if the answer is starting a ghost kitchen.
If you want to start a ghost, it's like a food truck. Ghost kitchens are like food trucks.
Yeah.
It's just a smaller version of a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's a different version of a food production facility. There's just less moving parts. So that's a way that you can fill capacity in your kitchens. It could also be a way that you start your business. It could be a way that you get your feet wet and decide if this is what you want to dig into, right?
Yeah.
So as far as the bigger question goes, I wouldn't be afraid to hire a big person first. Like I knew if I was going to be building a team from the ground up, I know I need 7 people to get this restaurant where we want it. And maybe those people don't get, hired immediately, but I have the plan that when we hit these certain points, then we hire these people.
When to stack the layers on.
When to stack the layers, right? That comes with having done this, right? So that and once having done this before, you just get better at knowing when to cut the bullshit out. That's a really kind of brash way to put it, but it's you just get better. If I had to do this again from the ground up, it certainly wouldn't take 12 years to get to the point we're at right now.
So what would you do? Take us through those layers.
If we were starting off right now,
yeah.
First things, and what we didn't have in the beginning is I didn't have an idea of how I wanted to grow this. I didn't know that I wanted to do just one concept and grow that to multi-unit. I tend to go to, I like different concepts. You
identified that when we first started the first interviews. Like your it factor, your strength is brand development.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Like that's what gets me out of bed in the morning is creating another brand.
Yeah.
Making a space for the people in our community to come and say, "Fuck yeah, this is awesome."
Yeah.
Right? That's what I love. But if I'm going to be, that being said, it's easier to grow multi-unit. I feel this is my opinion. I think it's easier to grow a single concept with multi-unit than it is to continually develop multiple concepts.
You're developing one formula and just hitting repeat.
Exactly. So I think there's a lot less moving parts, and it's, you figure out one thing and you figure out one time, and then you can just replicate it and keep,
Well, I mean, being here in Columbus, it's very appropriate that we nod our head to, oh my God,
Cameron Mitchell.
Cameron, thank you very much.
Yeah.
He said that his secret to scaling all those brands, because he has multiple brands, is underneath the brand, it's the same chassis.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But since your thing is developing the brand, I can see why having one brand is probably more appealing to you.
Yeah.
You might rather put all that energy into like the best brand.
Yep.
Right?
And I tell you what, I will give a nod to, I consider him a friend at this point.
Nice.
We've really, he has a little mastermind group of young restaurateurs, and I was lucky enough to put that together with him. And it's, the times we meet with him, which is about 5-6 times a year, it is restaurant school.
Yeah, I love that he's giving back.
Yes. And if those of you who are unfamiliar with Cameron Mitchell, like he is a restaurateur that has locations on all sides of the country, east, west, north,
and in the middle.
I mean, he has, it's a very big operation.
It's a Cameron Mitchell sandwich with Cameron Mitchell bread.
Yeah. And not only, he wrote a book too. And if you guys are looking for a good book, I'm going to recommend his book.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And it is not a good book because, I know his story and I'm familiar with it just living in Columbus. It is an exceptional book on being a restaurateur. And it's not a long book. It's an easy book to digest. It's just his story and the thing I like about it, it's not just chronological. It's not just I did this, I did this, I did this. He goes through lessons along the way and how he's built the system that he's built, and it's a really impressive system. So, absolutely go check that book out. Like it's I would say that if he was sitting in the room with us.
Somebody just asked a question in the Facebook group, what's a good book? And I wish I mentioned that one. I'm going to have to go back and do that today. Okay.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot of restaurant specific.
Everyone goes to Danny Meyer, which is a great book, but there's a lot of other good. I mean, there are a good handful of other ones.
There's not, setting the table is kind of like the book, read that first.
I'm too comfortable around you, Mike. My ADD is flaring up bad. Do we ever round off if you're opening a restaurant today, what does that look like?
Yeah. We're getting there. we're meandering through that, but I think I got to having a plan. Knowing the difference between, okay, do I want to start multiple concepts or do I want to start one concept and grow that to multi-unit? We didn't really know that in the very beginning. So in the beginning, it was just like, for us in the beginning, it was like, okay, we got a line out the door. Let's lean into that. Cool. We have a line and we'll add another location and then we'll go do this. Our growth strategy was exceptionally reactive. There was nothing proactive about it, right? So that is something I would do different this next time either. I would be very, very intentional with the plan to, start here and then go.
Yeah. You're reinforcing so much that's happening in my life right now. I think this is kind of a good transition into what I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a pivot happening, and it scares me. This is the first time I'm saying it out loud in an interview. There's going to be a pivot that's happening at Restaurant Unstoppable. And there's been a lot of people in the network that's helped inspire me. People have joined the network who've made themselves very vulnerable by putting their vision out to the group and sharing, like, this is what I want to do. And having people come, past guests and experts, coach them publicly.
Yep.
Do you know how scary it is to, like, put your dick out there and to, like, have people judge it?
Sure.
Like, publicly, like, that's a scary thing to do.
Yeah.
Sorry to be, like, graphic, but, like,
very
you're
graphic,
literally
Eric.
like lifting your skirt up to the world and being like, this is what I got. What do you think?
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
I mean, that's what we do almost every day, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's
but,
very vulnerable. It's
sure.
a very scary thing when you're first starting a restaurant to say, like, this is my vision, this is my plan. What's your advice?
Exactly.
It's a scary thing because here's the thing: when you say to the universe, if there's any ladies listening right now, I'm so sorry that I used that example. Hopefully, you guys keep listening.
Sorry for that visual.
Yeah. So like that's just a scary thing to do, and it takes a lot of courage, And all these people that have joined the network that have come and said, "This is my this is my plan, this is my vision." And to have people come and say, did you think about this? Did you think about that? And to kind of get broken down a little bit, but to still show up after kind of getting a little dose of reality.
Yep.
It's just really inspiring. And I haven't really been doing that myself as far as sharing my vision. And you have to start with a vision, right? And then the progression and why this is really resonating with me right now is I think it's a good time for me to start talking about what I want to do is because I don't have a plan or a strategy. Mm-hmm. I've been, like you were before COVID-19, very reactive.
Sure.
And I'm trying to get much more intentional, which is why I'm reading the Atomic Habits.
Yep.
Because I'm trying to create system and routine in my life to get to where my plan is. My plan isn't created yet, but I know that I need habits first in my life. Yeah. Which for me is my morning routine. Wake up, exercise, meditate, journal, professionally write, email a past guest, a network member, a future sponsor, and a future guest every morning.
That's a hell of a routine, man. That's impressive.
But the idea behind these habits is like, what if you created routines in your life that if you did it every day, it would have massive impacts on your life.
Yeah, right.
And those are the things that are the most important in my life. For me, it's just feeding the funnel.
Yep.
New guests, maintaining old relationships, developing new relationships,
right,
and making things happen, right? And it's feeding the funnel.
It sounds easy.
It is. It does, but it's hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah. So I've been working on my vision. Like my goal is by the end of July to have my vision being shared.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this out loud because I invited RU823, who did a workshop in visioning in the network to basically coach us through visioning. And that was a year ago, and I still don't have my fucking vision, man. because I'm afraid to commit, I think. I'm afraid to put it out there because if you say it, then you're a chicken shit if you don't do it.
Exactly.
And that's scary.
Yeah.
So,
but once you do, and you're intentional about it, then the universe will conspire to help you achieve it.
And that's the whole point, which is why you have to share your vision.
Yeah.
You need a vision. It's not enough just to have it. You need to share it. And that's the point. You're literally like ahead of that's why I'm doing this right now. So my vision, what I would love to do is to use the network to document, if I'm opening a restaurant tomorrow, these are the people I'm going to. I'm going to put myself out there like some of the people I've been doing in the network, making myself vulnerable. Be like, this is what I want to do. What's your advice for me? Yeah. So what I want to do, oh my God, I want to start. So like my whole thing has always been like, I learned to do one thing really well, just like pizza.
Yeah.
Do one thing really well. And so one of the reasons why I'm here, because I admire what you've built and I love your brand. I love calzones, man.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking calzone junkie.
Yeah.
I even like when I was growing up, I worked at a pizza place. I would show up to parties. I would always bring the calzone, and I would just get creative, and I would just love it. And as far as I know, there's not a single brand out there, maybe one or two actually, that I know of. Stuff Your Face in New Jersey, and there's a brand in Denver that just started not that long called Afterburner Calzones.
Yeah.
There's a few out there, and you see empanadas popping up, you see bao popping up all over the place, and I'm like, it's happening. I was like, calzones is next,
dude. We got a really good multi-unit calzone place here in Columbus.
Really,
located here, and I think they have franchises kind of all over.
So I know it's a good idea.
Yeah, so you can go to it.
I'll have to. I mean, you have to introduce me. But
I
think that would be something I would want to do, and I think I'd have a lot of fun with it, and I think it's a good idea. So, but I would want to document that process. And like get coached on. So like if I'm opening a calzone shop tomorrow, what's your advice? But here's the thing. I'm not just anybody opening a restaurant.
Yeah.
I'm Eric Cacciatore opening a restaurant with this massive network with all these tools and resources.
You have a hell of a head start.
Yeah. So I just talked to his name's Sanjeev Rosden. Yeah. And I interviewed him yesterday. He came up through Applebee's and IHOP and Pizza Hut and KFC and brands I'm not like really love or anything like that. Those weren't the brands like that I wanted to make an example.
But they're impressive brands.
But they're really impressive brands, and he knows a lot.
Yeah.
But he graduated Sweet Green, helped scale. Like he did a lot there, and now he's with the Coffee Bean and the Tea Leaf. And he had this really great advice. He said you need a board of advisors, and a board of peers, and a board of sponsors. And my unfair advantage is I have a really big board.
Yeah. You have a lot of boards.
Yeah. And I get to get access to the best minds in the restaurant industry and ask me for I can ask them for help.
Yeah.
And I can document that process.
See, you're starting off with a bigger runway than most people could ever imagine.
And I don't know what's taking me so long. I think part of the reasons why is I don't have a team. And that's one thing I identified in your interview is that you had a team of people to start with.
Yeah, we did.
A family that you identified, like your marriage.
I mean, it really is. The team was, a lot of them are still with us today, you know, but my first thing that I tell people is you got to get obsessed. Like whenever you start whatever project it is, because when you start out, you just have an idea, and you're not an entrepreneur at that time. You have an idea.
Yeah.
Right. You're not a restaurateur. You have an idea. Right. So get obsessed about your idea. Get obsessed about it. I used to go to restaurant supplies and just wander around like I was wandering around New York City for the first time, right? Like just jaw hanging open, just like there's where you buy sheet pans. There's where you buy, giant kettle cookers. There's where you buy, a gallon of banana peppers. There's where you buy whatever, So I would just wander through these aisles and just be like, holy shit, man, this is where you get this stuff. And that was just part of me wrapping my mind around what it would take to open a restaurant, right? So that's, get obsessed about it. Like, do whatever you can. Get obsessed about your name. Get on your, start developing your brand. What is that?
Me to share my name?
Are you comfortable?
So I mean,
that's a big move.
It's just getting it out there. I don't have to commit to this, but I have to talk about it. Because the other thing is, I'm so busy talking about other people and what they're doing, and never talk about what I want.
This could be its own episode.
Yeah, but I want to start doing the purpose of these conversations is to go back to my mentors.
Yeah.
The people that resonate. I'm essentially asking you to be a part of my board of advisors.
Yeah.
Live.
Well, I am flattered.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I love the idea of like pockets of love.
Yeah.
Right?
Love it.
Because that's literally what it is for me. I love this shit and they're little
Yeah.
pockets and it's just like you're extending this pocket of love.
Yeah.
The other kind of funny thing, and I'm not really appropriate. I mean, I talked about whipping my dick out earlier today, so I think that's kind of an example of like
Now
my
twice
sense of
now.
humor. Yeah, 2 times.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, ladies. Anyway, I'm so sorry for everybody. But I love this. So do you know what calzones translates to? It's not penis, but it's underwear. So I started following hashtag calzones.
Yeah.
And it translates to underwear, but like I love your. Okay, I don't know why I'm saying this out loud. This is why I'm very like embarrassed. But like your brand, your pizza dude, right? What would that look like? And what if he was just wearing like underwear, like SpongeBob, like SquarePants or something?
Yeah.
But it's like what's it? Double entendre?
Yeah.
Calzones.
I will be.
See, this is what happens when you put yourself out there.
I know exactly. So I'm not going to say that's a bad idea. But what I will do, and I forget what kind of sharing this is called. Back in my days where I was with EO, they had a certain name for it or something. It'll come to me. Anyway, I'm going to share a story that is going to essentially be a form of advisement for the question you just asked, right? So back in the day, like our brand is very, we don't take ourselves too seriously.
Well, neither do I.
Right. So, it was very easy in that time when we were children to make a lot of dick and fart jokes when it came to pizza. But I had one rule.
What?
No matter what the college humor was, no matter what the, dick jokes or fart jokes were, that we would keep shit out of pizza. As in, I wouldn't associate anything gross, poop, with my product.
Yeah.
All right. So no matter what the humor was, you keep shit out of pizza.
Yeah. That's good advice.
So there is my share with you for that.
But underwear doesn't have to be gross. It could also be like pockets of love. It could be like, I don't know what I'm saying.
We'll keep going.
You know what I'm saying? But you could have fun with it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you
Sure.
could, this kind of like playful, you know what I'm saying? And not serious and goofy. But I think you could just have a lot of fun with it. And I'm not committed to that idea. I'm just literally spitballing right now. And that literally popped into my mind this morning. And I have horrible ADD, which is the other thing that terrifies me about saying things out loud.
Yep.
Is because then I'm like, oh, well, that was a bad idea. So everything I'm just, there's a side note, a cliff note that what I'm saying out loud right now is literally just brainstorming in real time.
Totally. And that's the fun thing to do. That's why you have these groups, right, that you can actually do that with. And there's a hard thing about being the creative, and this is a lesson that I've learned recently too, is that when you have an idea and the rest of your ecosystem hears it, sometimes you forget that spitballing to them puts them in panic mode. And this is something that I was like, hey, what if we do this? And then that was just an idea. It wasn't even reality to me, but pick your whatever it is, your idea. When you say your idea out loud, whether you were serious about it or if you're just like, hey, I was just in the shower today and I thought about this, your team internalizes that as in, all right, here's Mike's plan. And that was a lesson I had to learn because a lot of times I have to be very, very thoughtful and very choosy about who I bounce ideas off of. And if you do that to the team that is going to be affected by that decision, you put them in panic mode. Yeah. So that was
You're
something
so
I had to
right.
learn.
You're so right. And it's funny because like I just want to be able to dream. I'm a dreamer, man. I live in the clouds. I love the dream. I love to have ideas, but I'm afraid to put it out there because of the platform I'm on.
Yeah.
Because thousands of people literally just heard me talk about a fucking calzone wearing underwear, pockets of love. That's like so stupid.
Here's the thing: you got something there. It just needs defined, and
I'm not committed to that idea, but I'm literally just like having. And it's only because I'm here in this moment, seeing your little dude, and I was thinking it'd be fun to like, because I know your guy, he's still one of your partners, right? The designer. Yep. Like to have him like, hey, like draft this and see what it looks like. Yeah. Who knows? But like,
what a creative needs is you need somebody holding the balloon. Yeah. All right. So the creative, the person that has the ideas, right? They're the balloon. Yeah. You need somebody holding your balloon. All right. You need somebody that's grounding you, right? So it's the yin to the yang. It's if you've read, I think the book I recommended last time I was on was
Traction.
Traction.
Yeah.
All right. There's a follow-up book to that called Rocket Fuel, and that is just about the relationship between the idea person and the actually person that's keeping them grounded.
Yeah.
You know, so again, it's a really good book to just look back and be like, all right, I'm the idea guy. I need a guy that's actually going to run the business, that's going to get the things done that need to get done. That's going to tell me like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea.
And
and here's why, and they have that person to bounce, because an unbridled creative is a dangerous thing.
So I want to prove the point that you made, that when you start spitballing ideas and you start sharing stuff, you scare the shit out of your partners.
Yeah.
So I've never been this personal on the podcast. So I was dating somebody until recently.
Yeah.
Still talking, but I started getting to the point where I promised her 6 months. 6 months, I'll give you an answer as to where we start, because she's like, I want to have kids, I want to have a family. I'm like, I want those things too, but I want to grow my business first.
Sure.
That's more important to me right now, is because I swim through an upriver of shit for the past 8 years to get to this point where my dreams are actually a reach away.
Yeah.
And I have choices to make. And buying a house and starting a family is not in the forefront for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
But you got some work to do first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it got to the point 5 months out, or 5 months in, and I'm like, I got a month to make a decision, right? And I started thinking, and all these things are happening where I'm like, by saying yes to one thing, you're saying no to a bunch of other things.
Totally.
And I had to come to that decision. And I started spitballing ideas that were old dreams that I had, that I was just putting out there to see what kind of shit would happen.
Yeah.
Panic mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I scared the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right? What if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? What if I?
But at the same time, I think it's important that we have those conversations. We put stuff out there because you need to share ideas. So who knows what will happen?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, like, absolutely, like, I've experienced it, and it's hitting close to my heart. But I'm at this point where it's like, do I get distracted? Do I stay on this path? And it's a really hard decision.
Totally.
So what's your advice for me?
I was thinking about something, and then you asked me the question, and I had to pivot here real fast. So, let me use this term for you. You knew I was a snake before you crossed the river.
Yeah.
So in that instance, where you have somebody that's like, hey, I want you to change, or I want you to be different, right?
Yeah.
You knew who I was before. You got in.
The question is compatibility. Like,
it's not necessarily compatibility, because the compatibility absolutely comes into it, 100%. But it's setting that standard. It's setting that in the beginning that says like, hey, I have this thing, and this is my dream, and this is important to me.
Yeah.
And what I need is if you want to be in this.
And I have to applaud her. Because that's exactly what she did. She said, "This is what I want when I want it."
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah. And this is another thing I'm trying to be better about, which is why I want to come back and sit down with people that I'm comfortable around, because I need to start opening up and start talking about my stuff and like getting it out there for the feedback and the vision, right?
Yeah.
Do you think I'm overstretching right now? Am I making this too personal?
No, but I think we could I think we should do our own episode.
Okay.
I ask the questions and we interview. Have you ever done an 800 and some episodes? Have you ever done one where someone has interviewed you?
Yeah. But like, I could do more. And I think so back to my strategy, my plan, I haven't committed my plan to writing, but what I want to start doing is within the network, Restaurant Unstoppable Network, because a lot of this stuff is very personal, like, I want to start having not everybody wants to hear about my shit. They want to hear about other people's shit and like learn.
Yeah.
But I want to start inviting people like you into the network and saying, hey man, like let's do something. Yeah. And if it's a good episode, then we could publish it, the podcast, as like a bonus episode or something like that. Exactly. But like, just starting to be more vulnerable within a smaller group of people, and then also doing the same thing for other people. Almost having a board of advisors, all my past guests in the network. Yeah. And like, as people are saying, this is my problem, maybe segment an email list of all my past guests and be like, hey, does anybody have a half hour to answer this question? Yeah. Because somebody needs help. Yep. That's my vision.
Yeah. And I think that's, especially with technology right now, like, that seems like it should be a really easy thing to do.
It is. That just start. So like, my minimal viable product was just starting, just like just having this place for people to come and then be like, what do you guys want? Right. Like, what can I do? How can I serve you? What value do I bring to this group? And I think the value I bring is this network of amazing people, generous people that are willing to help. Yeah. It reminds me of my time. I mentioned this earlier, like briefly, I was in EO for a little while,
and if you're not familiar with EO, it's called Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a, I guess you call it kind of a fraternal organization where you're paired up with a number of other similarly minded, people, and these are just other business owners. But having a restaurant version of that, that could have local chapters and stuff, like I see a lot of value in that.
I do see that being a potential as Restaurant Unstoppable grows, to have like on-site chapters of people that share our core values and our mission. Yeah. Right. And that is on the, but start where you can. Right.
Sure.
Yeah, man. So back to the advice, like if you were to, I want to start putting myself out there more in the network and like I mentioned Ari, being like, hey Ari, like you're the person I went to learn about visions. Mm-hmm. And I'm reading your book, and your book is coaching me through vision. Like I think I've executed what you told me to do in your book. Here's what I got.
Yeah.
What's your feedback?
Right.
And like I think that those types of dialogues, and along the whole journey from vision to business plan to core values to finding partners to creating systems to marketing to scaling, and using the tools my guests are recommending to us organically.
Exactly.
So our unique selling proposition really is trust. That like if you like these tools have come to us by way of 800 entries of successful people telling us what to do. Right. Now we're acting on it.
Yeah.
So that's my vision.
Hell of a runway, man. It really is.
But like how do I do both is the question. How do I run a community like that and travel around the country and learn and support my network and continue to do what I've been doing, and how do I open a restaurant?
Yeah. Oh shit, man.
Yeah.
That's hard. It really is hard. And let me ask you this, like, why do you want to open a restaurant? I mean, all you've done is you spend the last 8 years learning about how goddamn hard it is.
Validity. You don't that's another reason why I haven't shared it, because I might have scared myself straight, and I think it's good to scare yourself, because if you're not scared,
there are easier ways to make money.
Sometimes it's better not to. Sometimes I wish I was ignorant, dude. I wish because it's when you start to know stuff, like you start going, whoa, do I really want to do this?
Yeah.
But I think because, okay, so a good example, a podcast I used to listen to, I should listen to more, but I still listen to this day, is Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income. Yep. And that's how I started to learn how to podcast. But what's unique about his podcast is he's podcasting about being a podcaster and making money.
Yeah.
So he gets to do the thing and podcast about the thing he gets to do.
Yeah.
I'm podcasting about other people doing the thing that they're doing. And it's hard to podcast about opening a business, because opening a business isn't starting a podcast. So he's podcasting about the thing that he's doing. So there's he's like very slim, very narrow. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So
and I think
he's killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah. I think you just answered your question right there.
Yeah. So that's why.
So, if I can't talk you out of opening your own restaurant and you really want to do it for validity and just to, because you think it'd be easier than just somebody else starting out without the support system.
Yeah.
Then, what do you think about taking a year off of interviewing others and spending that year or so documenting what it takes to actually open a restaurant? So,
that's kind of the transition that I'm making right now.
Yeah. I
still wanted to do what I've been doing, but I'm going to people, past people, and then in the network documenting that. But I think part of what I need is operating partners. I think I need partners.
What do you think? Let me ask you this. You've spent how many years now on the road?
I mean, the podcast is going on 8 years, but on the road 4 years.
4 years. So you spent half the time doing this on the road. What part of being on the road do you like? Is that something you're ready to be like, all right, you can still, especially
honestly,
now.
I don't like, I like travel. I love experiencing new places. I love meeting people. I need to find balance. Yeah. I think I've achieved balance this year. Because instead of going on like a 3-month-long road trip and sleeping out in my car and like doing crazy shit, I've graduated I went from my car to people's yards and floors to Airbnbs that are really fucking sketchy to like not so bad Airbnbs to sketchy hotels to now I'm like moderately hotels, and I don't know, it's getting better. But what I do, I do a 2-week road trip or a 1-week road trip. And I try to get like 1 month to 2 months of content at a time. And that's better balance.
Perfect. Yeah. And you can do these things on your computer now too. That
but then at the same time, I could have done it then, but there's something about this. There's something about this.
I totally agree. Yeah. But if you need, that's technology has caught up at this point.
Yeah.
Not only technology, acceptance, adaptability is caught up, right?
Yeah.
So, what was kind of novel fringed thing 16, 18 months ago is way more mainstream than it is now.
Yeah.
So I mean, the ability for us to just do this, and it's awesome being in person like we are right now. But the last time I did a podcast, it was with a local guy, and he lives 2 miles away. We did it over Zoom.
Yeah. Let me get a little bit deeper into my vision, because I think we're aligned, but I haven't shared enough yet. And how are you doing on time? I didn't think this was going to go as long as it is. I apologize. We've got 20 minutes less. I'll try to be quick. So what you said I need to do is kind of what I'm doing. So 2 weeks to a week on the road, getting this kind of content, stretching it out over 2 months. Meanwhile, I'm going home. I'm working on the network. Mm-hmm. And I'm still having these conversations, but the conversations are getting much more intentional. The first thing I'm doing right now is working on my vision. In August is business planning. I'm going to restaurantowner.com, and he's going to come on the show, and he's going to help me with my business plan and my network members' business plan.
Right.
And then we're going to go to bplans.com, and they're going to talk to us about live plan software. So, and then we have somebody coming up about financial stability. So it's like all this stuff that I've learned about on the show, and now I'm kind of chronicling in real time. And I'm going to be trying to be really good about not getting ahead. I don't want the content to get ahead until I've done the thing that we've learned.
Sure.
So that I am kind of doing that, and I'm hoping that by putting it out there, that the universe is going to be like, well, you fucking knucklehead, why didn't you say so?
Right.
Like, we got people, we know people, I know people, the universe knows people. Like, we got you. Yeah. And I think I just have to kind of sit back and see what comes at me. Because I do think that I think I do need somebody who, and I'm not going to rush into a relationship. That's one thing I've learned. But I do need to tell people what I want. And I would love to have somebody who's close to me, that I connect with, and say, hey, let's do this together. You be the operating partner.
Sure.
I work beside you, but you got to know that every month, every 2 months, I got to leave.
Yeah. I mean, that just comes with layers, like I talked about. Maybe
so I need to start building my layers.
Yeah, maybe that's not a reality in the first 6 or 8 months.
Yeah.
But perhaps by the end of the first year.
But what I want to start doing also is I want to start just doing a pop-up. Mm-hmm. And just start playing with recipes and figuring stuff out and documenting that process and putting it out there.
The cool thing now is it's easier than ever.
Exactly.
I mean, third-party delivery platforms. I mean, you get ghost kitchens. I mean, I'm sure. I know in Columbus there's 2 ghost kitchen facilities where for $2,500 a month or something like that, which is nothing to start off with. You can get a concept started in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And be out there selling it. And out there, I kind of have bunny ears right now, quote, out there. But you're out there on third-party delivery platforms. It's easier than ever. A food truck is a hard way to do a ghost kitchen.
And that's what I've been preaching. Your restaurant doesn't start with a brick and mortar. And people used to think you need to get a $1 million loan or at least $500,000 loan. You need to go to a bunch of different investors to start. No, you start where you can.
Exactly.
And that's with pop-ups, collaborations.
Totally.
Even just a blog where you're just telling people what you're doing.
Low cost, low risk experiments.
Collecting emails, developing your brand, putting it out there, which is exactly what I'm doing right now.
That's when it moves from idea to project to side hustle. And you're right in that, that's that middle thing for when it goes from project to side hustle.
The other thing that's been holding me back too is I always wanted to do it with my own money. And for the first time ever, my cup's overflowing.
Yeah.
I pay myself $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I literally send $5,000 every month to my personal checking account, and that's all I give myself.
That's awesome, man.
Everything else goes back into the business.
Right.
And now more is coming. I'm not taking more and I feel guilty taking $60,000 a year. Isn't that weird?
No, yeah, I get where you're at, but you absolutely should not.
I know. I realize this
because that's 8 years, man.
It is, but
that's 8 years
and I've actually never. I feel secure. I have health insurance for the first time in my life. I have a bed. I bought a bed, man.
Yeah.
I'm a grown up.
How adult of you?
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm getting stability. And I feel like now's the time just to start putting it out there. And don't hold me to the calzone guy wearing underwear. I'm literally just dreaming right now and having fun.
Yeah.
So if you guys are listening to me, I feel like I'm going to get I can see the comments coming in.
Yeah.
But just know that I need to start putting it out there and I need to start dreaming out loud.
Dude, you got to start somewhere. Yeah. All right. And maybe a little calzone and underwear is.
I literally
start somewhere.
I didn't even have that idea. I knew that calzones meant underwear in Spanish because I started following the hashtag calzones, and there's a bunch of dudes in underwear in my feed, and I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, why?
I swear that I'm not searching this stuff.
Calzones.
And I was like, well, there could be some fun with this. We could have some fun with this.
That's funny.
Anyway, this has been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, likewise.
Any final words of wisdom for me? I would love to have you stay, close to me and coach me if you're willing. And feel free. I won't be a pain in your ass, but I just know I value you and your opinion, and I have a lot of respect for what you built here in Columbus.
Well, that means a lot, and that, like I said, it's very reciprocal too. 800 episodes and 8 years of doing this is a hell of a feat, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. No last words of advice. Any called out guests? So that, like I usually say, first, how can we connect with you if this is our first time hearing who you are? We want to connect with you. Maybe you're hiring. What's the best way to connect?
We're hiring.
Yeah, like everybody else.
Yeah. We're hiring. So my email is super easy, Mikey, Mikey, at latenightslice.com. If you just Google Late Night Slice, check out our restaurants. We put a lot of effort into the experience of going into our restaurants. So, we might be a pizza by the slice place, but we're probably a pizza by the slice place like you've never seen one before.
Yeah.
So I do think it's worthwhile to see what we've done with our interiors. Our culture is awesome. Go check us out.
And
look us up.
Who do you respect and admire? Somebody who I haven't gotten on the show yet in Columbus that you think would make a great guest mentor?
Great question.
Or worldwide.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Cameron. He's been an incredible mentor. These last few years. That we put this thing together.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a group with 5 or 7 like restaurant guys who are just doing awesome things in Columbus. Let's see who would. Shit, I could just name them all. There's one of my buddies who pivoted from restaurants to cannabis.
Okay.
And he used to own a sushi chain, and now he's on
Fusion.
Yeah, Zach. I think you actually interviewed him.
Yeah.
Zach's on cannabis now. And,
okay, so he's done with Fusion.
I mean, he's still involved,
okay,
kind of, but very, very much on the side. He has a really awesome story.
Nice.
That's kind of cool. That may be a good catch up. Maybe not restaurants, but
maybe not this trip, but soon. And I see you checking to watch. I know we got to get wrapped up. Just thank you so much for taking the time to continue this conversation and to continue to mentor my listeners and myself. There is no questioning, man. You are unstoppable.
Thanks, man. It was a lot of fun.
And just for the record, I'm not committed to anything that I'm saying here. I'm literally just having fun. I have other ideas too, like investing in other people's visions and dreams in the network and just documenting that. Because I think that's what lights me up, is creating opportunity for others and like helping others grow. I'm just going to end it there. Don't judge me.
Good,
don't hold me to anything.
When I thought about that, I thought about just like throwing my drink at you and be like,
really?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay. God damn. All right. My anxiety is going to simmer down over the next 5 minutes. Thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, peace out.